Hi everyone, I'm Jill Gillespie. My pronouns are she, hers. I'm based in Kansas City, Missouri. And I'm starting a series about yoga for working people. I'm kind of doing this like a little bit at a time so we don't overwhelm ourselves with the idea of taking time for yoga practice in our days that are very busy. They're very different than they used to be, probably. And I thought that I would approach this kind of idea of office workers yoga, but this could be for anybody who has a job where they just get so into and focused on the job that we sometimes forget to take breaks and we lose ourselves a little bit. And so my philosophy when I practice yoga is this idea of reacting from a place of breath and seeing if we can act from a place where we have taken time to breathe, to think, and then respond to something that has caused us stress. Because I think a lot of times, because email is so, like we can get email everywhere, people can call us and find us, Slack, all of those things are just available and they make us available all of the time. And just because our body is available doesn't mean that our mind is always available. And so, I don't know, I just wanted to bring a little bit of a series that kind of takes the office life and brings yoga into it in a way that isn't just like learning how to stretch. A lot of office yoga I see is here's how to stretch in your chair, which I'm going to do a lot of. But I also am going to take on this lens of what got us here and how can we keep ourselves safe and set good boundaries and be more yogic in our whole presence in general. I hope that makes sense. And so to that end, I'm going to start this series with thinking about our seat and how we sit and how we breathe at our jobs. And so our jobs might be in an office. It might be doing customer service and seeing people face to face. It might be sitting at our dining room table in the middle of our household, being loud. We're all in different situations and things. Again, I've changed. They may not go back to what they have been before. And so our job is to just understand this moment here and be in this moment and move from this moment because that's all we have, okay? And so I have a nice cushy office chair that I'm going to start this practice from. And so wherever you are, you're probably already sitting in a chair. And so for this practice, the chair that you have is perfect. And we'll start to bring attention to how we are normally sitting in that chair. I know that when I work, I get very like this and like this, or I do sit like this a lot and I'm very off kilter. And so our first part of our centering practice, this kind of stopping work for a moment and coming to ourselves, is going to look like bringing both of our feet to the floor. And letting the sensations of the bottom of our feet, if you can take off your shoes where you are, go for it. If it doesn't make sense, don't do that. Don't violate any policies, okay? But as much as you can, really experience the floor under your feet. And so if you can spread the toes and wiggle them around and then let them come to the ground. You might lift a foot and circle one of the ankles. And then let the feet rest. And so with our feet planted, we can start to bring the awareness into our hips and how we hold ourselves while we're sitting in our chair. And so this particular chair is actually sideways, and it's not as high as I would like it to be. And so for comfort and for change in position, you may want to adjust your seat so that your hips are slightly higher than your knees to give them a little bit of a break. And so if you have a pillow or a sweater or coat or something nearby, or if your chair just clicks and goes up, it might feel nice to raise your seat in whatever way that makes sense. And then what I'm also doing is kind of scooting myself to the front of the chair. So I'm not resting into the back of my chair anymore. I'm sitting upright. And so once we found this position that feels good in our bodies and it feels safe where we are, we'll start to think about our breath. And so you might be sitting at your desk, or maybe you're standing at a window, or you're sitting in a dining table in the middle of a room. You might be in bed. Wherever you are, find something in front of your line of vision that's not moving, that you can gaze at and start to bring your focus to. You might start to notice the edges of the thing, the lines that you see on it, around it. As you breathe, you might imagine how it feels if you were to touch it. You might notice or think of how it smells. And then eventually you might not think about it at all. Allowing your breath to deepen. Allowing your face to be soft. Letting your shoulders soften down out of your ears. And here your brain might settle on a mantra or a phrase or a thought or a word that can anchor you to this practice, that can remind you of your breath and your patience. It might be something like peace. It might be slow down. You don't have to read it now. You don't have to respond to it now. Take one thing at a time. And then that meaningful phrase, come back to it over and over again. Maybe write it down. And here you might start to soften and bring yourself back, wiggling the fingers and toes, maybe shaking things out. And so to end this practice of sitting and breathing and finding a meaningful phrase, you might take some time with your notebook or an empty document on your computer and really think about the things that are going on at your work, in life, that make you feel like you need to watch a yoga video on YouTube, right? See if you can identify the things that are causing stress. Notice how you respond in your body to that stress, emotionally to that stress. Think about the things that you do for the people that you serve in your job and in the world. And ask yourself, am I striving too much for perfection in everything that I do? Does it feel like I'm bending over backwards to make convenience for other people? And then is that my job? Right? And so while yoga and breathing is a beautiful practice, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's a practice for our whole being and our whole environment that we are in. And so you might identify those times where you sacrifice your breath and your equilibrium and your balance for somebody else's convenience when it's not your job to do. Think of times where you've responded to a question or an email or a message from an initial reaction to maybe stress that it caused, and then realized after the fact maybe you read too much into their tone, or that you hadn't read the message clearly, and that it wasn't actually something to be stressed about, but we kind of projected anticipated stress on the situation. And so I challenge you with this video today to take time to become aware of how stress presents itself in those communities that you represent and that you work with. Identify if there is an outlet of change that's possible and how you might begin to practice that. Thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to practicing with you again soon. Peace.